This episode of the Golf Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Bird Dog Shorts. Dominate summer with an amazing pair of shorts and a free Yeti-style tumbler when you order over at birddogs.com/pool. That's birddogs.com/pool. All right, D-Gens, welcome back to the Golf Gambling Podcast. It is just me tonight. Don't worry, Boston Capper is okay. I have proof of life. He got tied up with some family commitments tonight, but he'll be back on the show tomorrow. We're going to have Jeff Feinberg on the show tomorrow night to talk about more about the U.S. Open, talk about our betting picks for the Travelers, but just me tonight. So tonight, I didn't give you guys a preview pod last night because it was Father's Day and the U.S. Open went late. And just going to be honest, I have a kid coming very soon. There are a lot of priorities right now that I need to put ahead of putting together some preview content. And I wasn't able to get a column out to you either, but I will give you a quick preview of Travelers. The good news is that this is a golf course we've seen a lot of, and I don't really need to hold your hand through a lot of this stuff. You kind of know what works here and what you really want to go for. And then we're going to do, I'll go over the DFS pricing. I'll talk about ownership. I'll talk about some guys I like, some, guys who I think are going under owned right now, where I think ownership is going to go. We'll see. But first, I'm going to save most of my US Open takes for tomorrow, specifically the players. Congratulations to Wyndham Clark. I unfortunately had Rory McIlroy. That's what it feels like to have a crushing Rory McIlroy defeat. When you bet him, I don't bet Rory outright a lot because typically his price is so low, but I just had a really strong feeling in my gut that he was going to do very well and maybe win this thing. I didn't understand why people were just counting him out from the jump. I don't think there really is a golf course that Rory McIlroy cannot have success at. But didn't happen. Wyndham Clark was nails, though. We'll talk about that tomorrow. He was absolutely spectacular. And but I want to transition to the golf course because that was a very polarizing subject this week about just how it played and if it was challenging enough and if it was a good golf course. I can definitively say it is a good golf course. I broke it down. I tried to show you how, it could play, the interesting features of it. And people just wanted to pile on Thursday because they saw a couple guys go and shoot 62. And I get that. That's not really a U.S. Open that you're used to. We all grew up with, narrow fairways and thick rough and trees and no birdies. And some people like that style of golf. That's what they want to watch. That's what they're used to. I preferred watching at LACC. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I didn't mind what happened Thursday or Friday even. The whole point was this golf course was designed to have birdies on it. There definitely were birdie holes that if you set it up that certain way, you could have them. You could go low. But there also were a lot of difficult holes, and that's exactly how Thursday played out. It happened to be that most of the easier holes are on the front nine. There was a little bit of a stretch on the back nine where you can score two, but there are some really difficult holes at LACC that shine through, like number 5, number 13, 16, 17 as well, number 7, number 11. So I didn't mind at all that guys are shooting 62 on Thursday. Par is just a number, guys. It is what it is. The fact that there was marine layer all day over the golf course, and what that does, that adds a little bit of moisture to a golf course because it's essentially putting mist on the golf course, and there's no wind at that point. And sure, when you have wider fairways and no wind and a little bit of moisture on that golf course, guys are going to go low. So, but it still held up, the scoring average, I think, was still about 1.5 over par. And then Friday, we finally got sun in the afternoon and it toughened up. The scoring average, I think, was a 1.25 shots harder than the morning. You could start to see the ball kind of rolling. And at that point, I said, okay, this is when the U.S. Open is going to start. I thought this was going to start turning, that we were starting to see a transformation and a shift in the golf course itself. So if you have a problem with how it was going, it's not really the golf course's fault. I don't think NBC did a great job of presenting on television. It kind of was the elements that got off to a slow start. But I will say though, it wasn't perfect. And the reason why it's not the golf course itself, it's a couple factors though. I thought the USGA definitely played it a little too safe, especially as the weekend went on. And I guess my expectation for this golf course was, like I just mentioned earlier, I thought it was going to evolve throughout the days and get progressively harder and harder and harder as they kind of let it dry out and let the weather kind of dictate what it was going to do. And I came into Saturday thinking, especially because the marine layer wasn't there all day, I thought, okay, this is going to be really, really difficult conditions. And honestly, it wasn't. And it was mostly because of the fact that the USGA decided to put down a lot of water on this golf course during the tournament. And I guess I can understand, because the golf course, LACC, can dry out very quickly when the sun is on it. So I can understand if they want to put it on the greens, but I didn't understand why they were putting on the fairways too. At the end of, I think, Thursday and Friday coverage, I saw them take hoses to the fairways. I guess one of the things that I found most interesting about LACC was the rolling topography and how once the ball hit the ground, it started rolling and rolling. And I'm going to be honest, like when I watched a lot of that Walker Cup footage, and it definitely played a lot faster on the ground than what I saw at LACC this week. Now, part of that is because it's in September, but the USGA willingly put water on the course, so that didn't really help. I also maybe kind of expected that it wouldn't just play the same pretty much every single day, as far as the front nine was super gettable, back nine wasn't. And I remember reading that Jeff Shackelford commented on a bunch of holes saying, well, if the USGA wants to run these greens at a certain speed, you are going to lose pins. Now, like, and I think about it for hole number 3, which was, it's a shorter par 4, but it played uphill. It had, pretty significant undulation of the golf course, but it had, or to the fairway, but it also had the most severe contouring on the green. It was very severely sloped from back to front, and it played as one of the easiest holes on the course. And I can only think that, because the USGA wanted to run these greens so fast, they lost probably challenging pin positions. And I think that's probably why we saw some certain holes play easy every single day and all the other holes play difficult every single day. There wasn't really, I felt like, a diversity of, okay, maybe this day it plays really easy, but the next day birdie is really difficult, or this day it's complete ball buster, but now it's really gettable. If you look at this hole by hole scoring every single day, it was pretty consistent turn from start to finish, which that's a setup issue. That's not really a golf course issue. The USGA chose to put water on the course to kind of slow it down, and they chose to run the greens very fast to lose pins. So if you have a qualm with the golf course, it's mostly with the USGA at that point. And I think you also have to take qualm with the fact that, these guys are just really good at this point. With how far and straight they hit the ball, it just doesn't matter sometimes. And LACC is great for member play. But you definitely saw some players challenge, and it definitely brought the best players who were playing the best up the leaderboard there. But it also kind of set up situations where, like, kind of like a Shinnecock situation, where it, like, because the marine layer hung over the course in the morning and there was water on it, it was super gettable. It creates some wave splits. That's really bad for gambling. Like, if you're in DFS today, how do you feel about, basically Fleetwood and Rahm coming back from T38 and getting to play a golf course that had water sitting on it all day and morning, and shooting 5 under, 6 under, and moving all the way up to T10? Whereas if you actually built a good lineup and you had a guy going into Sunday up towards the top, they played much more difficult conditions and they had to fade. And that wasn't great. But like I said, though, I think if, we are going to come back here, I think in 2039, maybe we will have a different golf ball and different clubs at this point, where it won't go as far. Maybe some of the or maybe some of the challenge of hitting on the correct side of the fairway or being able to carry certain hazards, maybe that will actually be brought back for this place. But I mean, overall, though, I think the biggest drawback, and this is, I think, universal at this point, is just the vibe. I said back in December that I didn't think this actually, I thought it was a great golf course. I didn't think it was a good major venue. That probably was one of my best takes I ever made. The vibe was bad. And it had to do with the fact that the LACC basically only want to have 23,000 people on it, and mostly their members and corporate sponsors on there too. They did not want the general public out there. And it really showed. It was kind of dead out there. I mean, I think the fact that Ricky drained a 60-footer on Saturday and 7 people clapped, that's not great. It wasn't easy to get around the golf course. Pace of play was pretty bad. I said that back in December too, and that was right. So yeah, listen, I love LACC. I think it's a great golf course. I think the USGA played it way too safe with the setup. I think they put way too much water on it. I think they could have pushed the envelope a little more as it went through the weekend. They chose not to. Maybe they got spooked by not wanting to turn to a Shinnecock. Maybe the members of LACC didn't want the golf course to go completely to hell. So they didn't want to really stress the golf course too much. And between that and the coverage, which everybody's talked about ad nauseum, honestly, I think I'm good on LACC. I mean, there's great golf courses in America that are not meant to hold major championships. And especially when it's in LA and the crowd is dead. And these guys are just too good and they hit it too long. And great architecture sometimes isn't really challenging for these guys. So it is what it is. I have no problems with the golf course as it is, though. I think it's just a setup issue. But my co-host disagrees. There were plenty of things that he didn't like. Him calling the golf course, says it sucks, or TPC LA, whatever. So that's all I got to say about that. I know that was a long rant, but that's, I think, was the major issues, was setup and the vibe. That's why it was kind of a meh US Open for me. And if I know it's going to come back in 2039, if it somehow falls through, it is what it is. So, all right, why don't we take our first break? So let's talk about Bird Dogs. And Bird Dogs makes a stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. They do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but way better fit. And they fit way better because regular shorts they're stiff, they're restricting cotton. And this is a huge issue for, especially in the summer, especially with golfers too. Like, you don't want, your hips to feel very stiff, especially when you're trying to rotate through the ball, shift your weight. And if you can wear a pair of comfy shorts that can help you, with your flexibility and make you feel a little more free as you start hitting through the zone there, Bird Dogs are definitely the shorts for you. So go to birddogs.com/pool and enter promo code pooled for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/pool for a free Yeti style tumbler. You don't want to take your Bird Dogs off, and we promise you. All right. That's the end of the LACC talk. I know that went long. Why don't we talk about TPC River Highlands? And very quick preview. You've seen this golf course a lot. There's a lot of data on it. There's a lot of history on it. So why don't I just give you the main bullet points, and then we'll go into the DFS pricing. So TPC River Highlands, it was originally designed by Pete Dye in 1982. Here's where people get this wrong, though. So in 1989, though, it underwent a major renovation by his protege, Bobby Weed. And the golf course you see today, I would say probably 70% of that is Bobby Weed. And it was a massive renovation that they did to it. Most of the original Pete Dye you see at TPC River Highlands is actually probably in someone's very nice finished basement. All the houses in the area that ran the golf course, that was the old golf course that those houses were built on. Pretty much the entire back nine, all the way down by the river and the railroad tracks, those were new holes after they bought property. And Bobby Weed and I think another one of his partners designed all of that. They also changed number 5 and 6. They combined 8 and 9 to make that kind of 90-degree right par 4. But because this is a shorter golf course and it's very penal, and there are several Pete Dye golf courses that are very short and very penal, especially off the tee. That's why you see a lot of crossover between guys who do well at Pete Dye golf courses and guys who do well here. And the fact that Bobby Weed is a Dye protege. So, it's I would say a fake Pete Dye. Bobby Weed definitely put some Dye principles into it. There are several golf courses I use this week that are Dyes, and also other ones that are not, but they're just shorter. They're a little more penal off the tee. They have high driving accuracy rates, which this place has, a high green regulation rates, which this place also has. As far as agronomy goes, it is Kentucky bluegrass in the rough, 4+ inches. I believe they're taking a page out of Oakdale's book and growing the rough pretty thick this year. I think they also might have shrunk the fairways a little bit. I noticed on the GCSAA, the acreage of fairway shrunk a little bit and the acres of rough grew this year. So maybe not quite as wide of fairways as what there used to be. I mean, I know the driving accuracy rates tend to be around 68% here. Maybe it's a little less this year. As far as the greens go, they're bentgrass and Poana. And there's several golf courses that we've seen where that's the grass. Oakdale a couple weeks ago, that's a bent Poa mix. Rocket Mortgage Classic, Detroit Golf Club, that's Poana. Silverado, that's bent Poana. Ridgewood, where it's site of, I think, a Northern Trust or a BMW a couple years ago in the FedEx Cup playoffs. That's a bent Poa mix. Hamilton Golf and Country Club, bent Poa mix. Firestone, where they played the WGC Bridgestone, bent Poa mix. So there's a lot of bent Poa mix golf courses. I mean, how it rolls, it kind of depends on what the composition of Poa to bent is. If it's mostly bent, it doesn't roll quite as true. So it can be kind of a tricky surface to putt on. It's a lot more inconsistent than a bent grass that you typically see. But overall, though, it's similar strains of grass. It doesn't have as much grain in it as a Bermuda does. So, typically you'll find guys who perform very well on bent grass and bent Poa. But I focus mostly on the bent Poa stuff this week, just because I'm a nerd and was able to track that down. So as far as some other things about this golf course, like I mentioned, high driving accuracy rates here, but also a lot of penalties. There's a lot of water on this golf course. There's also there's some out of bounds as well. Or I think one of the holes on the back nine, you can hit it over the railroad tracks. That's a penalty too. So there are definitely a lot of shorter golf courses, and this is a very short golf course. It is 6,852 yards, par 70. It is, I think, the shortest golf course on Data Golf. So, there's several golf courses you could look at that have, pretty high penalty rates or are pretty short. So Austin Country Club, there's a lot of guys who are really good at Austin, really good at TPC River Highlands. Harbor Town, you got the Pete Dye connection there. Pebble Beach, same deal. PJ National, Sea Island, Sedgefield. Sherwood Country Club, that's the one where they played that Zozo Championship. That one actually had some nice crossover TPC River Highlands again. Fairly high driving accuracy rates. You don't have to use driver a whole lot, but if you hit it off the fairway, there was definitely a big penalty for it as far as your average score between balls from the fairway and balls from the rough there. The stadium course at PGA West, kind of a lighter version of TPC Sawgrass, and TPC Sawgrass is probably another one you can use too. TPC Louisiana, TPC Potomac, TPC Southwind. So, there's definitely a lot of Pete Dye golf courses that you can definitely use, but there's also a lot of non-Pete Dye golf courses. Don't just pigeonhole yourself into Dye this week, because it's about 40% Pete Dye. It's 70% or about 60% Bobby Weed. Definitely to look at all those golf courses, though. They basically offer all the same stuff. I mean, essentially a penalty for hitting, off the fairway there. And then around the green, it's pretty tough here. It's one of the tougher golf courses on the PGA Tour as far as the ability to gain strokes around the green. But even though it's fairly smaller greens, it's only about 5,000 square feet in area. Usually these tournaments have pretty high green regulation rates, so usually around 70%. It's mostly because you have a lot of shorter approach shots. I think 50% of your shots come between 125 and 175. There's also a slightly higher amount of shots under 125 too than the typical PGA Tour stop. So if you just look at shots under 175, you'll probably get about 82% of your shots for this place. And that's why you tend to see, a lot of parity in this leaderboard where, you have guys who, can't hit driver all over the place. and it's a lot of shorter approach shots. So that shrinks the gap between your premium ball striker, who's really good with the long irons, and kind of the run-of-the-mill guys. So that's why you can see a shorter hitter do well here. That's why you can see a longer hitter do well here. You know, you've had Ches Reavie and Dustin Johnson win at this place, or Bubba Watson even. He's been really good here. So, you know, there's definitely a lot of variety of skill sets that a golfer can come here with and do well. You just got to keep it in the fairway, keep it out of the penalty areas, hit your shorter irons pretty good. Being a good scrambler helps, but it's not a prerequisite. Just because it is so tough around these greens, and there isn't really a whole lot of correlation between guys who dominate around the green and show up really well on the leaderboard. I think that's, you know, I think it kind of levels the playing field a little bit, and then roll the rock a little bit. So, all right, let's take one more break, and then we will start breaking down DFS pricing. So we're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Best Ball Mania 4 is here, and Underdog Fantasy is giving away $50 million in prizes. Underdog Pick'em is also a great way to get down your favorite MLB and college baseball player props. So many ways to win over on Underdog, and active in so many states. So head over to UnderdogFantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN. All right, $10,000 range. You got Scotty Scheffler at 11,300. Rory McIlroy off the close call once again, 10,900. John Rahm at 10,800. Xander Schauffele at 10,400. And Patrick Cantlay at 10,200. So the most popular player by far in this range seems like it's going to be Patrick Cantlay, with probably a lot of support for Xander as well. Maybe it's because of backlash from yet another solid, looks good in the Wikipedia page performance at a major, but in Xander's case, he definitely blew it over the weekend. And in Cantlay's case, he blew it on Thursday and backdoored to top 15 finish like he usually does. And, you know, both those guys were in contention last year. Xander obviously won. Patrick Cantlay was terrible on Sunday. I had a bet on him that day. But, you know, Patrick Cantlay, he definitely dominates a lot of the golf courses that I mentioned earlier. You know, as far as really good at the Stadium course, really good here, obviously. Good at TPC Louisiana and Heritage. He won at Sherwood. Really good at Pebble Beach, too. So a lot of these shorter tracks where you got to plot around, you know, hit really good tee shots, avoid penalty areas. That's his bread and butter. So I'm not surprised that in DFS he's really popular. Look, I mean, there's definitely a lot of guys I like, especially in the $9,000 range, that are not popular. And there's a couple guys in the 8s and 7s too. So if you want to eat the chalk and start with Cantlay, who, you know, I mean, there is some concern this week, I think, because it's been really busy with the schedule, and a lot of these guys are probably going to take a summer break between now and the Scottish Open, because it's just been a really busy schedule. There wasn't a lot of time between the last PGA or the last major and this major. I think a couple of guys are definitely going to take a couple of weeks off. So maybe these guys are just going to, you know, maybe cruise to this place. But Patrick Cantlay, though, he hasn't won in a while. And maybe this is a motivation for him to do well this week. So, I mean, I can't fault anything really in his profile for, you know, being popular. It just, if you want to eat the chalk or not. But I actually really like John Rahm this week. And I mean, he let a lot of people down at LACC because his driver was so bad on Thursday, but he actually drove it pretty well after the fact. And that's another guy too, that, you know, he's been really good on a lot of shorter golf courses with a high rate of penalties. So, you know, really good at the Amex, you know, the Stadium course and all those ones. Really good at Austin Country Club. A lot of short irons there. There's definitely some water on that golf course too. He's been pretty solid at the Players Championship, even though, you know, I mean, he blew it in 2019, but he finished top 10 in 2022 or in 2021 there. He also got off to a really good start this year, the Players, but he had to withdraw. You know, 15th at Heritage, he hit the ball great that week, but, you know, he would just come off the Masters, so maybe he had a little bit of fatigue. Second at that Zozo Championship that I mentioned earlier with Cantlay there. Pretty good at TPC Southwind too. So even though he's a, you know, longer hitter, and we've seen longer hitters do very well here, like a Dustin Johnson, a Bubba Watson. So I actually really like Rom this week, and he's not drawing a ton of ownership right now. I'm seeing projected ownership maybe like mid-teens at this point. Maybe the second lowest of the guys in the $10,000 range. So I really like Rom. Rory's been surprisingly really good here, but I think it's mostly just low end top tens, and I don't remember him ever contending for a win at all. So, if you want to fade him off a emotional, US Open, I think this would be his fourth straight week he's played. Maybe it's a sleepy 15th finish, and paying 10-9 for that probably isn't great. Scotty just seems like he's money in the bank. Anytime he tees it up, I have no reason to expect him not to play well at this event. I think he has a T13 here last year. Really good at Sawgrass, really good at Austin Country Club. A lot of guys who are really good here are pretty good at this place. But he's going to be popular. But again, there's some ways to diversify down the lineup there. So, but my favorite play is definitely Rom in this range. And spoiler for tomorrow, I have a bet on him to win. I think he's going to win this event. So, all right, $9,000 range. So you got Victor Hovland, $9,900. Tony Finau, $9,700. Colin Morikawa, $9,500. Tommy Fleetwood, $9,300. Wyndham Clark, $9,200. Ricky Fowler, $9,100. And Matthew Fitzpatrick, $9,000. There's really only one guy in this range that is super popular, and that's Tommy Fleetwood. And I understand the case. He had a great showing at the final round of LACC. He is the king of the Sunday, I'm out of contention, but the USGA is just scared for their life, so they water the golf course, and I'm going to take advantage of that. That's Tommy. He did that at Shinnecock Hills, and he did that yesterday. So, the next time someone wants to point at yesterday's major or Shinnecock as the reason why Tommy's awesome, just remind him of the fact that he got lucky that there was a shit ton of water dumped on the golf course, and he took advantage of those conditions. But listen, otherwise though, the iron play has been looking good, really good at a lot of these types of golf courses too. Always really good at Heritage, really good at the Honda Classic, really good at TPC Southwind too. Decent at the Players. His Travelers, actually he's been okay here. So he finished T46 last year. He finished T9 or T13 2019. So actually it's not all that good. No top 10s yet, only 2 finishes there. But he's drawn a lot of ownership. That's probably enough for me to fade him, just because of the fact that he's really popular. So I as far as like guys I like in this range, you can probably go back to Tony Finau. He showed, I think, decently at LACC yesterday. He just, he got caught in a bad Sunday, but, really good at TPC Southwind, pretty good at Amex too. A lot of solid top 20 finishes on a lot of these tracks, like a T11 at Sherwood. He was T13 last year at the Travelers too. And the iron play came back last week. He was struggling for a couple tournaments. Came back last week. Really good with his irons under 175. Really good around the green too. He's obviously having a ton of trouble with his putter lately, but he's won on a golf course that has bent POA greens. He won at the Rocket Mortgage last year. So, and maybe we're coming to, a season or a part of the year where Tony Finau maybe dominates some of these weaker courses and the summer slate here. So he's not drawing any ownership either. It's less than 10% for sure. There's some ownership on Colin Morikawa, and he should be better. At these types of golf courses. Anytime a golf course that values accuracy and iron play, and this isn't necessarily a putting contest either. Usually the winning score is in the teens or so. And he showed pretty good last week. He proved to everybody that the back injury or the spasms was just spasms. There wasn't really anything to it. He drove the ball a lot better. Last week too, he was struggling in that category for a little bit. Problem is though, like his results, especially on Pete Dye course, I'm kind of stealing this take too. It's pretty checkered. He hasn't really been all that great at Heritage. He had that one year where he was in final group with Stuart Sink and he was god awful on Sunday. Otherwise though, T31 at Heritage this year, T26 last year at Heritage. The COVID year finished T64. Never all that great there. He's never really been good all at Travelers either, although it was only 2 times. He played in 2019. I think still when, it was one of his first starts as a professional. So maybe we don't hold that against him. And then the COVID year, that was shortly off the heels of him losing at Charles Schwab. So maybe that's not fair to say that he hasn't been good at Travelers. But otherwise, though, at Sawgrass, got to a good start last year or this year and then just really faded over the weekend. Not a lot of strong results there. Never really been all that great at Austin Country Club either. So for whatever reason, it just hasn't clicked at a lot of these places for him. Really bad at TPC Louisiana too. So I understand why Morikawa is popular. I just think there's some concerns as far as why isn't he better on some of these golf courses? And I can't really think of anything with that. So I don't know how much I like him. Wyndham Clark seems destined to miss the cut. I think that's probably what's going to happen. I mean, you could definitely afford to get away with a bad, a slightly offline drive at LACC last week. Can't really do that here. Kind of like Fitzpatrick too. Again, not a lot of popularity. He played good last week. It was a T17 finish at LACC. Got to a slow start, but he clawed back in it. The iron play has been pretty good so far this year. Great putter, great around the green. Really good at some of these shorter tracks too, like a Harbor Town as well. I know he hasn't been really good at the Travelers, but I think, I don't think he's played very recently. So when's his Travelers? Yeah. So the only time he's played Travelers was the COVID season. And that was kind of a weird time in golf. Everybody was kind of just getting back into the mix. It was weird crowds. And I know John Rahm, he doesn't have a great course history here, but it was because he played here in 2015, 2016, I think when he was an amateur, in 2020. That was the only time he played here. So I don't know if I can really hold it against him that he doesn't do well here because of one performance in 2020 with COVID around. Otherwise, though, really good at TPC Southwind, really good at Heritage, really good at Sawgrass, good at Pebble Beach, like a lot of these shorter tracks. It seems like that's good for him. He's not drawing a lot of ownership either. So, for guys who are not drawing ownership in this range, I really like Finau. I like Fitzpatrick. Hovland could be interesting too if his ownership doesn't get crazy. I think he let a lot of people down at LACC, but awesome from under 175. He's got really good control on his tee shots. I think he finished like T15 here last year too. Good at Sawgrass. So I kind of like him too, as long as the ownership doesn't get too crazy. All right, under $9,000. You got Max Homa at $8,900, Justin Thomas $8,800, Sungjae Im $8,700. 3 guys right there that let's just start with them. Just kind of seem just dead. Sungjae's been horrible, absolutely horrible since he won over in Korea, and then he flew back. I remember at the Players that they said that he was battling a neck injury, and I almost wonder maybe on that flight back something just went amiss with that neck, because he has been absolutely horrific ever since that win. It's 3 missed cuts in his last 4 events. And just honestly, nothing's really going well for him. His irons have been really, really bad off the tee. He's usually pretty accurate. He's been very hit or miss there. Around the green's been a mess too. I don't know really what's going on with him. His ownership is absolute dreck. And he has been really good at a lot of similar types of golf courses. Obviously he's won at PGA National. He's done, a couple other top 10s there. Really good at Wyndham, really good at Sawgrass, great at TPC Louisiana too. Good at Harbor Town, good at the Amex. I don't know. That's tough. That's tough to he's shown absolutely just nothing. And I think probably maybe because of the injury concerns, maybe you just stay away from him there. Justin Thomas, another guy who just seems pretty dead. His ownership right now is just, I'm looking at under 2% for a guy who finished 152nd in the US Open, shot 81. Now, I had been saying for a couple months now, because I heard this from the Nolana podcast. They speculate he's been injured, been a hip injury. He apparently denied it in his press conference, but he says that right now he's going through some swing issues that are kind of mental right now. And that's probably explains why he just hasn't been all that good this year. I mean, I know that like he was having so much trouble with the putter that maybe he put in a lot of effort in that, and now it's kind of bled into his ball striking stats a little bit, because his last 3 tournaments, T65 at the PGA, cut at Memorial, and then cut by a mile at the US Open. Only 2 top 10s this year. It's kind of a lost year for him. So I don't know if I want to go back to him either, especially this place where he can't really spray it off the tee. And I don't know. I guess of all of them, though, of all those 3, I guess I want to go back to Max Homa. Now, he's been really bad here. He's been bad kind of at other shorter golf courses with a lot of penalty strokes. But, I mean, he was better this year at match play. He was 6th at Sawgrass. He won TPC Potomac, although I think that played a lot. That played a lot differently because it was so long with all the rains. I don't know how much we can actually take stock in that, but I mean, at the US Open, he hit the ball fine. It was really around the green that tricked him up. Finished T9 at Charles Schwab, T8 at Quail. So I don't think he's dead. And his ownership is, only 4.5%. I think that's worthy of a DFS play this week for Max Homa, just going back to him. Maybe just the fact that, he said before LACC that he wasn't going to over prepare, and because he knew the place. Maybe the fact that it was LA and he felt like he had a lot of pressure on him, maybe that got to him. But I don't think he's way closer to being on form than JT or Sonjay are. So, Hideki's really popular and he burned a lot of people last week. I get it with Hideki. Really good iron numbers, really good from under 175. But I think a decent pivot away from Hideki is Homa this week, just blindly going with that. I know the course history has been really bad here, but I think what he brings to the table now fits a little better for this place. Shane Lowry also, I think, is a good play in this range. He's not drawing a lot of ownership. Now, again, his course history stinks here, but if you actually look at what it actually is, so it was a T60 in the COVID year, and he played in 2016, and that's it. That's the only times he's ever played Travelers. Just with him, though, he's been hitting really good off the tee lately. The iron play's been kind of loose. I'm just going to throw faith in Lowry that's going to bounce back, especially at a place where there's a lot of shorter irons. It was going really good for a while. He gained a lot of strokes with his irons at Memorial and the PGA. Always really good at places like PGA National and Harbor Town and Sawgrass and TPC Southwind too. He's not drawing a lot of ownership. He's kind of sandwiched between Saeed Tagala, who's drawing a lot of ownership because I think people remember last year and they want to be on him for his win. And Tom Kim, who actually is probably a really good fit for this place because he's so accurate and his iron's really good last week and he's really good from under 175. And he won a Bobby Weed golf course. He won TPC Summerlin. So, and 70% of this place is Bobby Weed, not Pete Dye. So, I understand why Tom Kim is popular. Sahith, I think I'm going to fade it. I love the player, but he's so volatile. And if he's going to be chalked this week, that's enough for me to fade him. And good luck for anybody in the pool who wants to play trick or treat with Saeed Tagala. I love the kid, but not if he's going to be that popular. And then Siwoo Kim. I mean, I love Siwoo Kim, but so does everybody else apparently, but pretty good at a lot of the comp courses I mentioned, your Wyndhams or Sawgrasses or PGA West, pretty decent here too. Really accurate off the tee, great from under 175. But unfortunately he's really popular in DFS, but I like him a lot this week too. So that's $8,000 range. All right, $7,000 range. So here's where the ownership is right now. Mega chalk Russell Henley. I may have an outright on him at a price that was pretty ridiculous. But he has been steamed up a lot. A lot of money is on Russell Henley this week. I mean, he played great at LACC, obviously great track record at the Travelers, really good at a lot of the comp courses too, accurate, great from under 175. The putter has been pretty good recently too. He was in the mix here, I think, the year Harris English won for a win, but 20% ownership. So where can we pivot away from Russell Henley? Up here? Yeah, I mean, you go back to Denny McCarthy. He played all right last week, coming off of, that heartbreak at TPC River Highlands. Not a great course, LACC, not a great course history here, but, pretty decent on some of the other comps to, TPC River Highlands. So, for example, he got a 4th place finish at Pebble Beach. He teamed up to finish 11th at TPC Louisiana, 13th this year at the Players Championship, 6th at Amex a couple years ago, 10th at Sea Island, 3rd at Honda the Honda a couple years ago. So a lot of shorter golf courses where there's a lot of penalties, or McCarthy's been pretty good. He's usually pretty accurate off the tee. He scores well from under 175. It's mostly because of that putter, though. It's a friendly grass for him too. He does pretty well, I think, on like POAs and bent grasses and all those. So I can get behind Denny McCarthy at definitely under 10% ownership. You could also go, Brian Harmon's drawing ownership now, so that's not great. You could go, this feels gross. I mean, Adam Scott flop lag week. I mean, he's been pretty good here. Good at a lot of the comp courses too. He was absolutely brutal last week after being mega chalk. But 5th last year at TPC Southwind. Pretty good last year at Austin Country Club. 2nd at Wyndham, where he actually probably should have won. He's won a Honda Classic. He's won a Players. A lot of these types of golf courses, he's been really good. T13 at the Travelers a couple of years ago too. That he's drawing not a lot of ownership this week. Maybe that's somebody just blindly go back to. So I think of anybody above $7,500, if you want some guys with low ownership, I think it's Adam Scott and Denny McCarthy for me. Harris English feels like he's going to turn back into a pumpkin. I know he's a former winner here, but that's kind of been his MO. Like, he gets everybody really excited, and then he just basically craps the bed when he's got a lot of steam on him. And then when nobody's on him, then he does well, like last week at LACC. I wish I actually did a position on him, but I didn't. And then some guys under $7,500. Patrick Rogers, I think, was solid last week. He was, I think, under $7,000. I think he was kind of a trendy pick, but, T32 finish at the U.S. Open. He's got a couple of good finishes, a 3rd at, what's he done at Travelers? So he finished 3rd there in 2016. He was T26 there in 2018, T35 in 2017, T39 2015. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of pretty decent finishes. His latest results haven't been all that good, but even though he's a bomber, that's a guy maybe he can club down, putt pretty well on some of these bent POA greens. He's had success here. He's had success at some other shorter golf courses, like, T19 at Harbor Town this year. Last year at Sea Island, T10. He's got, way back in the day, a 2nd place finish at RSM, a couple good finishes at Pebble Beach too. So, even though it's a shorter golf course, you think he was kind of a bomber, that might be a fit here. You can go Andrew Putnam. What's his ownership right now? Yeah, 7%. I thought he played pretty good last week too. He, held his own last week. The iron play has been, I think, a little better for him lately. Super accurate. He's been pretty good at this golf course too. Great putter as well. He's drawn under 10% ownership. Really good at Austin Country Club a couple weeks ago. 5th at TPC Southwind last year. 6th at Pebble Beach last year. 14th at the Stadium course. Yeah, I can definitely get behind that. His Travelers results for Andrew Putnam. T46 in 2022. T13 2021. T57 2019. So yeah, never missed a cut. $7,200 and low owned for a guy playing relatively well lately. So That's a name too. You can get behind CT Pan, although I think he's drawn a lot of ownership. But I mean, I think he was injured for a while. Came back at, I think Byron Nelson played well. And then came back at RBC Canadian Open and played well. And I see a lot of similarities between Oakdale and this place as far as, I mean, that had really tricked out rough, but shorter golf course, a lot of shorter irons, had to keep in the fairway, and he's pretty good with his shorter irons too. His ownership right now is, 7%, $7,000. That's not bad. Nate Lashley, he's been pretty good lately too. He's got that win at Rocket Mortgage, so he can putt well on the bent POA mix, gained 6.4 strokes at the Canadian Open. What's he done here? He's been okay here, but he's really accurate, great with the short irons, really good putter on bent POA. That's a name you could go to as well. Everybody loves Eric Cole this week. I get it. He's a darling. The ball striking numbers look really good. Everybody really loves Austin Eckroat too. I mean, he's been really good so far this year, but I mean, don't forget about Justin Suh. Low ownership for him. He made the weekend. I think, what did he do on Sunday? I don't think it went all that great for him on Sunday. No, he finished T27 last week at the US Open. His ball striking number has been really up and down, but he's been really good from, with some of the mid to shorter irons. And I think he's fairly accurate too. So that can work out for you. You can go with Will Gordon too. He showed up pretty well at Oakdale a couple weeks ago. Now, for me and betting Will Gordon, that's just a recipe for disaster. But T18 RBC Canadian Open a couple weeks ago. This was kind of where the Will Gordon mania started. He finished third in the COVID year, this place. So some good vibes maybe at TPC River Highlands. For a guy who hits it really long, he drives it really straight. The iron number has been really good lately too. And that's somebody you can go with, $7,100. And then obviously you got Ludwig and Sam Bennett, who are really super talented players. Ludwig is drawing. Where's his ownership? Probably pretty high. Actually, not that high. You can go Ludwig this week. And I think you can probably go Sam Bennett too. I mean, so Sam Bennett, not a very long hitter, but really accurate too. He's not that great around the green, but the fact that he just hits a lot of fairways and he just gains a lot of strokes from that, I can see that working for Sam Bennett this week, especially at a shorter golf course where you got to keep in the fairway. I think I like both those guys, and neither of them look like they're very popular this week. Yeah. Sam Bennett, less than 4% ownership. Ludwig, less than 6%. I think of the two, I think Ludwig's ownership is definitely going to go up a lot. But you can go with him. And then one other guy I didn't mention, Aaron Rye. I think he has a couple good results here. Only I think he's got sub 10% ownership at the moment. Yeah, really good off the tee, really accurate, really good under 175. Hitting his irons really good lately. If you look at some of his results on some of these other shorter golf courses with a lot of penalties on it, T19 the players this year, he's got a couple good finishes at TPC Louisiana, 16th at the RSM. He only a T40 last year though, but that's not terrible for, what is he? That's $7,400. Yeah, I guess you're looking for more. But yeah, I mean, he's got the third place finish to the Canadian Open, 12th place finish at Colonial. So the guy's playing good lately, and he's not drawing a ton of ownership. That's a play. All right. And then under $7,000. So, I mean, this guy, this is another guy that always burdens me too. He was terrible last year here, but Alex Smalley has been playing good golf, making the cut in 4 of his last 5 events. T25, the Canadian Open, T40 at Charles Schwab, T23, the PGA Championship, T18 at Wells Fargo. Drives it really good. His approach shot numbers under 175 are pretty good too. The iron play's been pretty good lately. That's a play. Let's see. What's Lee Hodges' ownership right now? Wow. He's getting ignored. I'm surprised at that. I mean, he's been hitting the ball really good lately. I think he's been really good here. Yeah, so T29 Charles Schwab, T12 Memorial, T25 RBC Canadian Open. The irons have been great. The off tee's been really good too. He's been pretty good at stadium course, really good at Honda. He has a good finish at TPC Southwind. T25 last year. Man, I can't believe his ownership is that low. I think that's a great play. Putt's really good on Ben Poa. All right, Lee Hodges, let's go. I mean, Charlie Hoffman showed a little bit last week. I mean, he faded bad over the weekend, but he's been really good at TPC River Highlands in his career. You can go there. Sam Ryder has been really bad, I think, ever since the Farmers. But, I mean, he finally made a cut at the Memorial. He's been hitting his irons good the last 2 tournaments. And for the most part, he's been really good at Travelers. So, T35 finish 2022, T54 2021, T51 2019, T26 2018. So, for a guy who maybe you can get on Sam Ryder a little early before he pops, really good from under 175 too. That's not a bad play. Kramer Hickok, I think, has been hitting the ball a little better lately. That's the dude who went, I think 6 playoff holes with Harris English a couple years ago. I mean, he's gone T40 cut, T21 cut, so he's due to make a cut. The iron number's been pretty good on him lately. Obviously got that second place finish at Travelers. He's $6,300, drawing very little ownership. That's something you could do too. Sam Stevens has been really good lately as well. Where's my numbers on him? So he gained almost 6 strokes tee to green at Charles Schwab, gained about 2 strokes at the Memorial, and then gained almost 5 strokes tee to green at the U.S. Open. That's a guy who is fairly accurate off the tee, and he hits his shots under 175 relatively well. He's been scrambling a little better lately too. That's a name. One guy who's coming back this week, Kevin Yu. So he had knee surgery earlier this year, but before he was doing that, he was hitting it so good. Like he missed the cut at the Amex, but in one round he gained 3.6 strokes ball striking at the stadium course. He finished T44 at the Farmers, and he hit the ball great there. Hit the ball great at Pebble Beach. He finished T7, 3rd place at Bermuda. And then he just disappeared. So I maybe don't play him this week. This is his first start back. He played the U.S. Open qualifier a couple weeks ago. I don't think he did all that great. But definitely monitor Kevin Yu. Look and see how he's doing. Probably lay off and kind of see, how he does this week. But Kevin Yu should probably go back on your radar, especially this summer. We're gonna get into some weaker fields where maybe he can have a couple good finishes, and he's been good this year. So definitely keep him in mind. Dylan Wu is going to be, I think, really popular. Obviously played really good last week at the U.S. Open. Just been playing really good all year long too. Accurate off the tee. The iron has been really good. Did not play well here last year, but this should be a good golf course for Dylan Wu too. So, I mean, 7% ownership at $6,600. That's a little high, but if for whatever reason it comes back down to earth, you could do that. And then Carson Young, shout out to my producer who loves Carson Young. And listen, we love Carson Young too. He's been very profitable to us on this show. Did not go well at LACC last week, but I think this is going to be a good golf course for Carson Young here. Just super accurate off the tee, has putt really good on bent POA greens. And then a lot of the comp courses I looked at for this week, he has been pretty good at. So, T19 at Harbortown, T29 at Honda Classic, cut at the Zurich, but whatever. Those 2 results right there. And he was playing really good at Pebble Beach too, and then he had to withdraw. So I think Carson Young's gonna be a little better this week. I think he bounces back this week. So, all right, that's it. Thanks everyone for watching. We will be back tomorrow with Boston Capper and Jeff Feinberg to talk a little more about the U.S. Open, debrief a little bit, and then we'll go over our betting picks. So with that, good luck in DFS, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night.